check this out. Now that is a sexy table. Today's video, we're gonna go through 7 steps how to turn a boring standard table like this into something sexy like this. We're gonna dive in right now. Please stop for 1 second, click the subscribe button, like this video, subscribe and like, and that will encourage me to continue to create new content. So without any more waiting, let's jump right in. All right, so here we are. I have a few other videos which show how to leverage the new feature of the filter tiles, dynamic KPIs as well. But today's video, we're gonna focus on this, a sexy table. We're gonna go through the 7 steps for how to get to it. So let's just jump right in. First thing I'm gonna do for this whole process to walk you through is look at the table of contents and you'll see different sections. So you can skip to it if you wanna go to different parts. I encourage you to watch the whole thing though. So we're gonna, in parallel to this video, or to this visual, build that exact same table. So let's just jump right into it here. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a new table, make it right below it. I'm gonna add these exact same columns for my data model. I have other videos which describe how to get the arrows up and down within the value. Also leave a comment if you'd like me to explain it. I can go into more detail about that. So let's start by within this data model, I want the month name, and I'm just gonna mirror this first table. So units total, and it tells a story. So first, with any table, make sure it tells a story. The intention, what's the intention of the table? The intention of this table is to say by month, I want to know how many units were sold. I want to know how many were returned. I want to know the total units. I want to know the variances, if things are going up or down. I want to be informed, and then I want to leverage that table to interact and click on months and change everything in the dashboard. As you can see, if I click April, all the KPIs changed to April, May, March. So tables, especially good sexy looking ones, can be a great way to enable interactivity with your dashboard or report. So let's continue. Again, first step 1 is framing and size. Step 1, framing and size. So to frame it, we're gonna add all the attributes I'm gonna want to have in there. So month, units, right here, units total previous month, the PM is previous month. Let's make this a little bit wider. Units total variance, units total variance percentage with the arrow. We're gonna want then units sold. And again, I'm not gonna get into the DAX in this, but all this DAX I can explain. There's another video that explains it as well. In the KPI video I have, reference the KPI visual to understand how to get these arrows. But so let's keep going. Close the DAX window. Units sold previous month, units sold variance percent, and finally units returned previous month, units returned variance with the arrow. I see that I missed one, so I'm going to come back here. I like adding the attributes on the pane instead of the visual itself. So I incorrectly added the variance for units sold that does not include the arrow, so I'm going to add that real quick. Units sold, variance, arrow in that same spot. And now we have all our data. All right, so first part of framing, put all the data you want on there. Next part of framing, well, this is not going to fit. It just doesn't fit on the table. You don't want to have horizontal scrolling. Horizontal scrolling is just another way where we're being lazy and not getting all the information that can be seen without scrolling right there. So always by default, what I like to do is within the formatting of the visual, I'm going to get used to this new formatting situation here. format on. All right, so within the formatting of the visual, I will get rid of the data, as we've already added all the necessary data. I'll get rid of the build too. Actually, I'll add the data in the build just in case. All right, so let's keep going. Now that I have the key pane of formatting, lots of formatting, for framing and size, I want all of these things to not have to horizontally scroll. So first, let's just start by changing the default size. Always the size of this thing is too big. Sometimes I've noticed that you can change the actual size holistically, but typically I go through each section. So values, I want every value to be 9 or 8, as small as possible. I just keep clicking, 8's always the smallest. Column headers, 8 as well. All right, so then the next step to obtain the framing of this thing is let's rename these columns to make them as short as possible. You don't want to have this white space. You don't want to have white space that's just serving no purpose here. We want to remove all of this white space and also condense and have titles be as purposeful as possible. So let's go through the examples of that. To change the column of any field that we've added, what we'll do is we'll go to simplistically the data portion for this. And so month, I want this to be called month. And the units total, that's fine. That's as small as possible, units total. Up here you can see total previous month. I don't have to repeat the same thing because I know it's total. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Total previous month. And now for all these variances, it's very repetitive to call a title the same thing. So I'm going to just use an abbreviation, var number, this one, var percentage. What you'll see up here is there's a delta triangle. So that's even another way to be more informative. I will show you how to add that in 1 second. But let's keep going through these columns, just doing this process first. So units sold, we want to have sold previous month. I actually kind of like that a little bit more than the other one. Units sold previous month, and we'll do the same var number, and I'll show you, this will create an issue. I'm intentionally creating an issue to show you how to resolve it. We're going to do units returned. We'll just return that same previous month. Var number, var percent. So already with that, we have completed the framing step. We have taken this information and placed it within the context of our report by condensing the titles, shortening the size. So part 2, and also changing the column names. That's kind of the combination of the second step. So now we can finally frame this up, and what you've seen here is that I thought in advance that I'm going to want to have a similar data bar within each poignant spot that counts objects. So we're going to get more into this in a minute, but one key thing that we're going to want to have is intentionality with our color choices. Universally, that means green is good and red is bad. That's where very quickly with this top chart, people can see March, oh, dang, that's bad, down. And then they can start to look into the details. Down, 107, okay, percent, literally 2,571 units. The previous month was 4,974. This month, for March, is 2,403. So that's kind of the intentionality with color. First, with any table, you can just see what's good, what's bad. But let's keep this formatting process going. One final step with framing is it always defaults to these heavy blue lines. Those don't serve any purpose. You only want to use color intentionally. Blue doesn't matter. There's no reason for that to be blue. I'm not trying to have people look at that because it's blue, so get rid of it. And to do that within grid, border, we're going to set this to just kind of a standard gray, black. Other color will tell the story. We don't want people's eyes to go to those blue lines. All right, so, let's finalize with the delta. Financial terms, triangle, other terms, triangle represents delta. To get that, what I've done is I just go to, Google and search symbol for triangle, and it comes up and you just literally copy it. And there's also commands you can do to get to it by just like that. You simply copy the shape. So you can do this with many other shapes. If you want to have smiley faces or anything in there, you can do that. What I'm going to do is replace all of these now with the triangle. Triangle for this one. And let me show you an issue that's going to happen now. If you notice, I have renamed columns to be the exact same thing as other columns. So by default, the computers or the program will get confused and say, well, if you're starting to pick specific columns, especially with formatting, which ones are the right ones? So here's what that looks like. Let's go to the next step of, adding data bars. Data bars are a great way to don't overdo it, don't put too many of them. But what you want to do is just add them at key countable things with intentional formatting. Again, green bars are good, we're selling. Red bars are bad. Total is a combination of both. So it's neither good nor bad, it's kind of an overall presentation. So now how do we do that? So what we're going to do is within any specific cell element, I'm going to pick the series. And this is the problem. So you'll see I just have one delta money, one delta percentage. How do I pick the right one? It's just not going to work. So it usually defaults to the first one, sometimes jumps around. So what you need to do is temporarily rename these columns. And you're going to do that by going back into the data. So we're going to use this on interaction stuff. But we're going to want to go into build a visual. And I'm going to just change all these to this is 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. Temporarily, now I can choose and select those. So let's first add the data bars. I no longer need to see these columns. With the on interaction, it's now moved. The conditional formatting used to be tucked away, now it's up front in cell elements. So it's very simplistically, start with units total, and I'm going to want to add some data bars. So I don't want green, it defaults to whatever color might be in your theme or template. In this case, now for data bars, we're going to do a lighter color, and I'm going to pick gray because it doesn't mean necessarily good or bad. Units sold, I'm also going to add a data bar. That's good. And again, choose the lighter one because text over top of it will show up. And then finally, units returned, turn on the data bar, and those will be red for bad. One thing you notice, it's a small detail. Again, a lot of this stuff is going to be small details. I don't want this black dotted line. It just kind of jumps out more than it needs to. So you can change that by changing the color of the axis. Go back into where we just were. All these bars are going to the right, so there's no need for negative. But in this case, I'm going to pick the darker color that complements the color that I've chosen. So if I go to units sold, change the functionality. Let me turn this on actually so you can see where I'm clicking. The axis now is green, and the black one, we'll just make sure it's truly black, which it is, but I like this slightly variated version instead. All right, so now we have data bars. And what I'll do is I'll start to line these columns up so they kind of all track with each other. And again, we'll change these later on as time goes too. So I'm not trying to get too detailed with this part of it right now. Okay, so we have a ways to go still. We're starting to tell a story. I'm interested actually, we're going to do a little troubleshooting on the fly, These months aren't sorting, so I think I need to pick a different month. Date, and I added the date hierarchy. So for this, I actually need to make a change, and I'm going to, on the fly, you gotta fix stuff. You know, that's part of the deal. So I'm going to go back to the data, and I don't want month. I want to add this date hierarchy instead. And I'll drag this up, drag this down. And within this, I'm going to want to have only the month, because this isn't expanding. This is where you can add more. And now we're getting the sorted by, because what you'll find, what you can do is you can actually sort columns. I'll make another video about it, but we can create date tables dynamically. Then you can sort the values based on a number. So that's what this field is actually doing. Now we have February, March, April, May, June. Good. So let's start with the next step of conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is where you want to leverage it so people's eyes will go to green is good, red is bad, or maybe a gradient across the spectrum. In this case, we want to know green is good, red is bad. And I suggest it's important that you do this exercise repetitively. So we're going to do it 3 times, and you'll just see how it gets faster every time. It also burns into your brain so you memorize it. You can watch video, do it once, forget it. You do it 3 times. The 3rd time you're a little bored with it, but you have it. You've mastered it. You have that tip in. So let's look at this now. I'm going to get rid of the build a visual, and we're coming back to here. So what I want to do for each of these deltas, because variances are where things are said to be good or bad. We're going to start by changing 1, and then we'll start flying through it. We don't need to see this data anymore. Come back to here. We're going to pick a cell element, and we're going to start with delta 1. So this is just very simplistically starting it off. I want to have the font color based on a rule, and if I'm going to add 2 rules, this is where you get really good. Min, max. Simplistically, it's kind of set up for you. Number. We don't care about percentages. What this says is if the smallest number is less than 0, then I want to make that bad. If then the maximum number is greater than or equal to 0, red. So that takes the whole spectrum of all your numbers and divides it where 0 is the middle point, above or below 0. Those are colored. Oh, now this number is not colored, the total. So we want to have the total as well. So with any conditional formatting you apply, it's very important. I guess we can talk about these very quickly. Rules are what we've just seen here. Gradients, you pick that, it will just dynamically shift the value between a spectrum of gradients. We want to do values and totals. You can get creative, do totals only, and other more complex formatting when you want to have different visuals kind of pop, but right here you see we've done that. So let's just knock this out for the 2 other ones as well. Delta 2, data, we want to have font color on this, rules, new rule, number, min, max, units sold. So if it's below 0, or that's bad, and the variance, if it's gone down, if it's gone up, that's good. And we also want to ensure that we do the values and totals. That's matching. Let's go one more step. Delta number 3. We want to turn on the font color. We want it to be a rule based upon the result of the variance. 2 rules. If the variance is a number and a number, which it is. If the minimum variance is less than 0, make it red. If the maximum variance is greater than 0, make it green. But actually that's wrong, because this is units returned. So you need to think about how the color tells your story. If their units returned goes down, that's a good thing. People are returning less. So we actually want to flip these 2. If the number increases, it's bad. And do the same, values and totals. All right, getting closer. So we're going to pivot, and now we're going to combine a step of conditional formatting with the sixth step of framing the colors. So in this top chart, what our eyes do is we very easily say, oh, totals going around the horn, here's some months, totals coming across the top. Intentionally changing the color of certain delta columns that are the same thing to just get that repetitive nature into the viewer's brain so they can see that there's something special here. Look here first and then look other places for additional information. So let's frame this sucker up. What we're going to do, we want to have all the column headers initially. I'm going to have them with this background text color white. So you get to column headers, choose the text, background color white. I'm going to want to do the same thing for totals. Totals, I want to have the bottom frame the same as the top. It encapsulates everything. Again, we're going to change other things. There's going to be conditional formatting on the background colors of the columns and the totals. So we'll get into that too. Let's start that process by saying we want to specifically alter just the month column. I want to wrap this color all the way around. So how do you control the color of a specific field or column? I guess field. You do it this way. By picking this under the specific column section, it's going to list all the columns in your table. We're going to pick month. You're going to have three options. You can do whatever you're going to apply. You can apply to header, total, and values. Something that's very important here is that you can apply things to a column, but then also have conditional formatting, which overrides the things you apply. It overwrites the default. So again, you have default, then you have specific column based, and then you have conditional formatting. Conditional formatting trumps specific column trumps default. So, for example, if I'm going to change the background color to be the same. I'm going to make it white. So if I apply to totals, header, let's just see, well, if I put them all to say yellow, for example, you can see I've just overwritten the general request of what I wanted for both the headers and the totals to be, because this takes precedence. But we've wrapped that now, so that's complete. So as we're moving forward, we see, all right, we're starting to get some stories here. We're starting to see this thing come together. But like the top, it does make a difference when you have these subtle light gray backgrounds that bring segmentation and division to your table. Even just looking at this, you know, things kind of blend together. So we want to naturally create separation. To do that, we're going to do the same process. And this is where you can see delta 1, delta 2, delta 3, delta 1. We're going to have the background color be the lightest gray, text color black. Apply to header and total. Get ready to repeat. We're going to do the same thing. Delta 1. Oh, delta 1 will be a little bit different too, because that's going to have a white. So we'll take a look at how to achieve that. But we're going to do the same thing for delta 1 variants. We're going to apply to header, total, text color black, background color light gray. Let's keep it going. Delta 2, again, repetitiveness breeds understanding. Header, total, text color black, background white. Delta 2 percentage, header, total. We don't want the values. Text color black, background white. And you can see what I just did here accidentally. I changed the background color of the value. These light rows are intentional. The light gray in the background, it helps segment the rows very subtly. You can see with this one, it overwrote it. So I need to fix that. And this is clutch, it happens all the time. But you need to decheck values, or just make sure you have checked whatever you're actually trying to apply this to, which in this case is the header. Percentage 2, background color, check there. Finally, delta 3, text color, background color, header, not the values. Delta color 4, black, white, header, off. And not white, but light gray. Getting closer. It's starting to get closer. Now you can just see how much a difference conditional formatting makes. And these developer tactics, it takes a little extra effort than just putting a table, but this makes such a big difference with your end users. So think you're a pro, man. Like building this stuff is what next level, or attributes that take you to the next level versus just being a standard click the button and you're done programming kind of a person. So let's get this conditional formatting happening. There's a couple of key things that you'll see going on. First, the values of these columns are white. They're different than the whole of the report. Everything's white, including the totals. Plus, the background of the totals change. Well, let's get into that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same cell elements. We're going to start here, and you'll see we'll make some changes. Delta 1 percentage. I'm going to change the background color. I want the rule to be based off of a value. So what you'll see here is because I've created this text that has the arrow included, the up or down, you can see on the side over here, it's actually a text field. So what you can do with more complex conditional formatting is actually reference something else than what's being displayed. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into calculations and I actually have a units total. And this is why I have a variance percent with arrow and another just variance percentage. Because this variance percentage is a true number and now it shifts and it can tell what you're talking about. So what I want to do with this background filling, I want it to be very noticeable. The same min and max, greater than or less than 0. Red's bad, green is good. If it's less than 0, that's bad. If it's greater than 0, that's good. Hit OK. All right, we have this happening now. And you can see that the white font makes a difference. That subtle change draws people's eyes there first. We're up 75%, up 77%. So let's continue that process, but first we see we missed the formatting down here. Let's fix that. Always values and totals. So we're going to go and apply this process to the other two delta variances. Delta variance 2. Background color, rules, I want it to be based off of the calculation units sold, the variance, 2 rules, number, min, max, green, red for bad, green for good. And like always, I forgot to click the totals, so values and totals. One more time, burn it into your brain. We're going to do background color and pick the same calculation. Units returned, variance percentage, 2 rules, number, min, max. Sold is good, or units returned, when that goes down, that's good. When it goes up, it's bad. Values and totals. All right, getting closer. So now, how do we change that font color? Well, the same thing we're looking at here, and this is going to be a little bit of an easier step. We'll go back to delta variance 1. We're going to turn on the font color, and we're just going to say, as this is text, if this value, if it's not empty, put it to white. This will override everything. So we did the default table settings for values, then we can do specific columns, then you do conditional formatting via cell elements. I'm going to change this font color again to do values and totals. And let's go through and update this on all the delta percentages. So delta 2, if it's not empty, white, values and totals. Finally, delta 3, font, values and totals. If the text is not empty, bring it on the white. All right, look at this. It's only been, 20 minutes, whatever. We've just elevated that basic looking table to something so much cooler. So now you can do your final step of final tuning, having some fun with it. And what that's gonna look like is, in this case, I'm gonna go back to these deltas, and I don't need to have the 1. I don't need to have this. On the right-hand side, again, I just like having this build a visual available on the right versus embedded in classic undo versus having it embedded in the visual itself. So now, there we have it. That is a sexy looking table. I can interact with it, march, KPIs change, everything changes around it, and you're set. What you'll notice too is that it just tells a solid story. So those are the steps, but now you have fun with it. Take it where you want to go. And the best thing you can do is repeat this process, look at what you've done, and say, how do I make it better? How do I make my table better than that thing? What can I do differently? Throw some fun stuff into it, change it up. And there you go. So welcome, thank you very much, and check out more videos for more content, but please subscribe. Thank you very much, have a good day.